Hi, intermediate algebra students. Welcome to our first online lesson of Chapter 3. This is just some real basic stuff about solving equations, which hopefully you know quite a bit of, but will get you started hopefully on the right foot. Anyway, your goal in solving equations, if you remember, is to isolate the variable. And that means get the variable by itself all alone on one side of the equation. And you're used to doing that, I'm sure. So now the property used in solving equations is called a property of equality. And we have, see if I can spell here today, so property of equality. And this property holds true for addition and multiplication for sure, and also for subtraction, and even for division. And basically what that property says is, and if you note our little scale over here, this is the traditional means of explaining how equations work. You can think of equations as a balanced scale, so whatever you do to one side of that equation, you must do to the other side. Here the picture shows if you add 5 to one side, you better also add 5 to the other side. And that's true whether it's addition or subtraction or multiplication or division. You always must do that same thing on each side of the equation. Right, now we'll just get right to some examples, and hopefully a lot of these will be fairly easy for you. So here we go. First one, h minus 5 equals, h minus 8, equals negative 5. Remember, ultimately we want to get to this point where we have h equals something. We want to get that h by itself. So typically then we would focus on this side, the side where the variable is. We're trying to get that h by itself. So we will typically do the inverse or the opposite operation to this number that is close by or on the same side as h. So what we're going to do here, when I see that h minus 8, I am going to add 8. I want to get h by itself. So when I do that, I want to make sure I'm going to add 8 to this side as well. Typically I like to work in a vertical fashion like this. Some of you may prefer to go horizontally. Either way is fine. Anyway, when I do that, then on this left side I am left with just plain h. Negative 8 plus 8 is eliminates those or cancels those out. And then on this side I have negative 5 plus 8. Hopefully you can do that in your head. Your answer ends up to be 3. Now, the nice thing about equations is you can take this 3 and you can put it back in the original equation. 3 minus 8 is that negative 5. It is, and so then you're done. All right, let's take a look at our other example here. And this one is a fraction one, our favorite of course. 3/5 plus n equals negative 1/3. Well, to get this n by itself, I am this time going to subtract 3/5 from each side. Remember that 3/5 is positive right now. So I'm going to subtract 3/5 on each side. So then I clearly get n on this side. Now I'm in a little bit of a conundrum here because I have to get some common denominators on the other side. So with 1/3 and 3/5, I think my common denominator is going to be 15. I'm really just multiplying them together. So I have to multiply this by 5 over 5, so I get 5/15 negative. This one I have to multiply by 3 over 3, so I get 9/15. Those are also negative. So negative 5/15 minus 9/15 will actually be negative 14/15. Now that's a little bit tougher to check. It's possible to do, but maybe you can just take my word for it that that's the right answer for this one. Moving to some other examples with multiplication and division. In our lesson, this is actually the 3-2 lesson. Now, as you might guess here, I am going to again try to undo this I want to get k by itself. That's my ultimate goal, to isolate that variable, to get that by itself. So in this case, because I'm multiplying by -8, now I'm going to divide both sides by -8. Again, here's that property of equality in action. So then I do get k by itself on the left. Meanwhile, -72 divided by -8. Negative divided by negative is a positive, and so my answer is +9. Looking at the next example here, I'm dividing. W divided by 4 is 13. To get W by itself, in this case, I am going to multiply by 4. And I do the same thing on each side. The 4's cancel out or divide out on the left, and my answer becomes -13 times 4, which is -52. All right, good work. So a couple more examples we're going to get to, and these are the tougher ones, of course. So let's try this one. -1 3/8 k equals 2/3. Now, whenever we have those mixed numbers, as we've said, we want to try to get those into fractions. I ignore the negative sign. 1 times 8 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11, so I have 11 over 8 times k equals 2/3. Now, how do I get rid of that 11/8? Well, it is multiplied, so some people say, well, you could divide by 11/8, and indeed you could, but maybe the best thing to do, and I'm running out of room here a little bit, what if I multiplied by the reciprocal of 11/8? So what if I multiplied both sides by 8/11ths, like that? Okay, now notice what happens on the left side is that the 8 will cancel out here, and the 11 will cancel out. And so I will end up with just plain k over here. That's what I want. And then notice that on my right side here I have 2 times 8, which is 16, 3 times 11, which is 33. That should be negative because I do have that one negative sign there. So -16 over 33, that reciprocal idea. All right, one last example here, and that is -3x equals -4 2/3. I think I'm going to change this 4 2/3 right away. 4 times 3 is 12, and 2 is 14, so that's going to be -14/3, like that. Now, how do I get x by itself? Normally we'd say, yeah, I want to divide both sides by -3, so I can definitely do that, although once again I think in this case I am going to multiply both sides by -1/3. Same effect here, but I think a little bit more effective or easy to see why that's going to be my answer, or lead to my answer. -1/3 times -3, that cancels out, so I'll get just plain x here. And 14/3 times 1/3, both those are negative. I'm going to get 14 over 9. And a negative times a negative is a positive. All these equations we've seen here are one-step equations. We can solve them by just doing one step, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So, good work. Thanks for listening to our first online lesson, and we'll see you guys in class tomorrow. Bye now.